Hello, everybody. What we have here is a ton of Legacy players giving us their opinion about the ban and restricted announcement. Of course, I'll start. So I believe specifically two cards must be banned in the format. That is Entomb and Sowing Mycospawn. I think those are the bare minimum that WotC needs to ban for the format to remain healthy. However, I think that if we take a big swing and we hit several more cards, we can get a really nice balanced format that's fun to play, interactive, and lasts beyond turn 3. So I think those other cards are the One Ring, Orcish Bowmasters, Nadu, Atraxa, Balustrade Spy, and Troll of Khazad Doom. So I think if we remove those cards from the format, and maybe also Kozilek's Command, I think Kozilek's Command can probably go too. If we remove all of those cards from the format, what we get is a really nice, balanced, healthy format that you can play decks like Maverick. Dark Depths is a deck again. Some fair decks. Control comes back into the Legacy metagame again. I think that is an ideal spot for Legacy to be in. I'm not a huge fan of the 1-2 turn combo metagame that we're in right now, or the you must have it metagame. So personally, I think that this big swing would be really nice. But again, Entomb and Sowing Mycospawn are the two cards that I think must be banned. I think we could get a nice format reset with the other cards as well. So, what do I think WotC is going to do? I think WotC will hit something out of Reanimator, be it Reanimate, Entomb, or Troll of Khazad Doom. One of those three cards is going to go, and I think they've heard enough from me and from other people that would like to see Control back in the meta. They will get rid of Sowing Mycospawn. So, without further ado, please check out a lot of my friends here and some new friends that we've got giving us their opinion about what they think will happen and what they want to happen for the ban and restricted announcement. Hey, I just want to give a quick shout out to all of our Patreon supporters out there. Thank you to the Durdle Maniacs. If you want to be a Durdle Maniac, go to patreon.com/eternaldurdles and help support the channel. It keeps things going. It keeps things updated. Thanks so much for watching. On with the show.
Hello, I am Brian Boschenroll Koval, and I think the Legacy format needs to lose Sowing Mycospawn, something out of Reanimator. I'd like to start with Troll of Khazad Doom, see if that does the trick. If it doesn't, we can unban Troll and ban Entomb 3 months from now. And Oops All Spells gotta get in check. Do we nerf it a little bit, or do we kill it dead? I think killing it dead, we take Dread Return. If we nerf it a little bit, we take Undercity Informer. And there's room for some unbans. Earthcraft, embarrassing. I think Mind Twist would be fun to play with for a while. And Frantic Search. Maybe if we ban Entomb, we unlock Frantic Search, give Reanimator another tool. And what do I think Wizards will actually do? I don't think they're going to unban anything. And I suspect that they will get Reanimator in line. And I don't know if they feel the same way I do about Sowing Mycospawn, but I'm hoping.
Hey, I'm Max Dorshin, legacy enthusiast, content creator on YouTube, reigning vintage champion for Eternal Weekend. And for legacy bans coming up at the end of March, here's what I think should happen. I think that they should definitely get rid of Sowing Mycospawn. I don't think anyone has ever enjoyed that card in their life. A lot of legacy is zero-sum fun. Sowing Mycospawn makes Blood Moon look like a blast. And that's saying something. Get the card out of here. It's just absolutely miserable. It's keeping Control down in a big way. And so I'd like to see it go. Now, as far as the blue-black Reanimator deck that the Grief Ban did not kill and the Frog Ban did not kill, I think that there's two ways to go about it. We could either remove Troll of Khazad Doom, which would be like removing Entombs 5 through 8, since it entombs itself, and then you can reanimate it as a 6/5. Very good value play. Lets you play the super 17 land package with 3 wastelands in it that you can't get away without your cycling, your swamp cycling. So removing Troll of Khazad Doom could be one way to weaken it. If that doesn't cut it, or they want to go heavier, I would prefer they ban Reanimate over Entomb. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I'd like Reanimator to exist in some way in Legacy. I think that Legacy benefits from having a Reanimator deck. And so I wouldn't want the blue-black fair tempo Reanimator deck to destroy Reanimator as an archetype, which banning Entomb would do. And it also has splash damage on destroying the Entomb Echo Storm decks and stuff like that. It's better that we keep Entomb in the format. Let's see. So we got those. And then as far as unbans, I would like to see Deathrite Shaman unbanned. One of the reasons I'd like to do that is because mid-range at this point is almost non-existent. It's too fair relative to the stuff the other decks in the format can do now. And so bringing back Deathrite Shaman as, this one-mana planeswalker that was too good when it got banned, I think the format can handle it now. We have a literal one-mana planeswalker that pretty much no one is clamoring to get banned in Tamiyo. So I think that Deathrite, which does not generate card advantage, it's just a very efficient card, would be totally fine to unban, to bring back midrange, and also bring back control to prey upon those midrange decks. So that's what I think should happen. I think they should get rid of Sowing Mycospawn. I think they should get rid of Troll of Khazad-dûm, and I think they should unban Deathrite. Now, as to what I think will happen, I think that they're either going to make no changes or ban Nadu because it's a design mistake they're embarrassed about. Hopefully they take Mycospawn with it, but I'm not too optimistic.
What's up? It's Chris from 90s MTG. We have a ban announcement coming up, and I am so glad it's not my decision to make what we ban and unban, or if we're going to leave it alone. A lot of talk about the metagame, how it's continued to evolve. Post-ban of the Frog, which was a couple of months ago. Eldrazi, Mono Red Stompy, Reanimator, Nadu decks, all at the top of the metagame. Arguably, also, we have a variety of different tempo decks, saga, combo decks. Oops, All Spells comes to mind for a lot of people. Maybe in this current climate of Legacy, we have people pointing a finger at Sowing Mycospawn, Kozilek's Command, and other picks from the Eldrazi decks. We have people looking at Nadu. We have people pointing at Thassa's Oracle. That's the problem. Entomb, Reanimate. You'll see a Reddit post about Days, of course, right? It's my feeling right now that nobody knows what the heck is going on. I look around at Magic social media a bit, and it seems like there's just such a variety of opinions. Again, I'm glad it's not my decision. But if it were up to me, if I was going to try to make the most people happy with a ban update, I think a lot of people like the most recent update to Modern, where they unbanned a bunch of stuff and let things kind of unfold from there. Let people brew, let people go a little crazy for a while. Are there cards that kind of match the excitement that Modern had for Mox Opal, and Splinter Twin and Green Sun Zenith? I don't know if we have cards to unban that would meet that level of excitement. So maybe we leave the unbans alone for now. There's cards that I'd like to see come back someday, like Expressive Iteration, maybe a little bit too soon. I really like that card. What would I ban? Oh, it's so tough. But if I had to choose a card, I'd probably go with Entomb. That might be the card that has to go. And I might leave the rest alone. What do I think Wizards will do? Based on the results from recent MTGO events, tabletop events around the world, what I see on the tables at the locals, there might be a good argument that nothing needs to change, that it can stay exactly as it is and just let sets continue to drop. Let's see what happens after Spider-Man or whatever. But they might clip a card or two from Reanimator. They might clip a card from Eldrazi. What those cards will be, it's so hard to say, but it might be Entomb, might be Mycospawn. Those cards from the Eldrazi deck have gotten a bad reputation, and maybe Nadu will finally see its exit from Legacy. We'll see. I'm excited to see how it changes either way. I like a little shake-up. Looking forward to it.
What's up, everyone? This is Anu, twitch.tv/unzmtg. I have some thoughts about the Legacy metagame right now, and if I'm going to be completely honest with you, I haven't really been playing too much Legacy lately because, quite frankly, I'm not really happy with where we're at. This might just be because I play a lot of Control, and Control is not particularly well positioned, but I do feel like Legacy right now is in maybe one of the more non-interactive states that it's been in playing Legacy and looking at the metagame right now, it really gives me vibes of Modern back in like the 2014, 2015 era, where people were just playing really parallel archetypes that didn't interact with each other. So a great example would be something like Tron versus like, I don't know, Merfolk, right? Where you're just kind of like doing your own thing and trying to pop off. In Legacy, you have archetypes right now like Mono Red, which is just trying to prison you out of the game. Reanimator, which is also trying to kill you on turn 2. You've got Eldrazi. Sowing Mycospawn might be the biggest mistake of a card I think I've ever seen printed before. And then let's see, what are the oh yeah, Oops All Spells. Having a large meta game representation is something that scares me. Honestly, my favorite deck in the Legacy format right now might be Delver, and that's coming from someone who has not enjoyed Delver for like my entire time playing this format, over a decade. So, yeah, I think that speaks a lot to the format. What I would change, realistically speaking, I think we just need some sort of. Unfortunately, I don't think it's like one card. I think over time, like a lot of these decks have just gotten more and more and more tools. I would probably start with getting rid of certain cards like the top end of red decks, Eldrazi decks. Maybe Reanimate needs to go too. I don't know. And then you'd have to nerf like the blue decks accordingly as well. So I could even see a world where we go as extreme as like, I had this thought the other day. What if we just banned Brainstorm, Daze, and Ancient Tomb? This is something that like was talked about a lot before, but maybe that's something that we really are at the point of, because at some point, I don't know. It's really hard to say, but the format needs a massive shakeup, and banning 1 or 2 cards isn't going to fix everything. I, in fact, don't think Wizards is going to change a single thing in the upcoming ban list. So that's my take.
Hey everyone, my name is Rob, also known as Admiral Vortex. I am the main shoutcaster for the Bazaar of Boxes, a Legacy tournament here in the Netherlands, as well as a small tournament organizer in Haarlem. Ideally, I would like to see Sowing Mycospawn being banned. I think it is a healthy thing to have basic lands in the format. I think Wasteland being a card is very important for the format, but it's also important to be able to actually cast your spells, and I think Control as a deck is very much dependent on being able to have its lands. So I would ideally love to see Sowing Mycospawn go. Possibly Coastal X Command. It is a very flexible card. It is a very powerful card in its card selection. But I would be happy just seeing Mycospawn go and have a playable mana base again. As for what Wizards is going to do, I think Wizards is going to say no changes. I think they're fine with how the format is. It is somewhat balanced, even if it's not particularly enjoyable to me. I think Wizards is fine just letting Legacy sit as is, which is unfortunate because I think Legacy is a great format, but it does have its problems, and yeah, I hope Wizards takes care of the format. Yeah.
Hey, Legacy fans, since you're enjoying the show, please like and subscribe the video. It helps the channel grow.
Support Eternal Durdles on Patreon so we can create even more content and cover events.
Patreons get an ad-free RSS feed, 4 bonus episodes a month, and Discord recognition. Join the Durdle Maniacs at patreon.com/eternaldurdles.
Now back to the show.
Howdy there, I'm Cyrus Bales, aka Crucible of Words, and I play way too much Legacy for my own good. Stats-wise, since Aetherdrift came out, Blue-Black Reanimator has had 21 top 8 challenge placings. The second most successful deck is Mono Red Stompy, which has only had 12 top 8 challenge placings, so that's quite the big gulf between the best deck and the second best deck. There's a few other decks that are close to Mono Red Stompy, but there is just a massive, massive gap between the best deck and the second best deck. I myself have been recording videos for a few weeks trying to find out the hypothetical meta. So what does this look like if X gets banned? So I played Blue-Black Reanimator without Reanimate, which was, honestly, it was totally fine when I tried it out. Needed a little bit more tinkering, but I thought it was pretty good. Blue-Black Reanimator without Troll, that was a bit more difficult. It was competitive, but it needs a proper rebuild. You can't just like take some things out and plug some new things in. You do need to work on it quite a bit because that's part of the mana base. So you need to swap your spells and lands a little bit so you have some more lands in there so you can keep your wastelands and stuff. But I think that was still pretty viable. I think you can still play Blue-Black Reanimator if they ban Troll. Whereas banning Entomb would properly kill off that deck, and I would like to see that happen. We've been living in this Blue-Black Reanimator world for so long. I just want it gone. I don't think that we should have a tutor of the quality of Entomb in the format, because Entomb is just such a better rate than everything else in Legacy if you're looking at tutors. Not only does it find you the card you want, but it puts it where you need it. And that is just too much power, especially since you can slot it into a tempo shell, so you kind of get to have all the best cards in Legacy around it. And I think it's just really warped the format massively. Just to see as well, I also tested a couple of all-in Reanimator lists without Entomb to see if the archetype could function without it, because people said, oh, you can't ban that because you'll kill off Reanimator altogether. And the deck still performed. So full-on Reanimator has actually been a really good deck for a long time, and it's totally viable without Entomb. So I think it's safe to say that we can ban Entomb without erasing traditional Reanimator. I even spoke to Reanimator expert Rootslayer about it, and they agreed and said that all-in Reanimator archetype would still work without Entomb, and they know way more about that deck than I do. So yeah, Entomb is the best thing to ban right now, and I believe Wizards will ban it. It used to be banned. They mentioned it in the last ban update. It is the individual unique card, and I think we just need to see it go. I'd like to see Sowing Mycospawn go as well, because that card is just not suitable for Legacy, and the play patterns of the card are just toxic and uninteractive. I don't think Wizards will ban this card. The stats aren't quite there, but I think that's because the best decks are really good against Eldrazi and Cloudpost. I also think Cloudpost is the best Sowing Mycospawn deck, and I think people are sleeping on it a little bit. But I think there's a lot of ill feeling towards the card because it's a bit like Ren and 6, where it's clearly designed for Modern and fine over there. But when you get to Legacy, it's like, what does it interact with? Okay, that's a bit of a problem. So maybe next time around, I'd like to see it go, but I'm not expecting it. Another card I'd like to see go is the One Ring. The best card advantage engine in Legacy should not be colorless, and it should not allow Soul Land decks to recoup the card advantage, which their decks are built to then hemorrhage, right? They want to play like Lotus Petal, Chrome Mox, play something out ahead of the curve by sending a bunch of resources into it. But if the thing they're playing is just a card advantage engine that gets back all of those cards, it's kind of breaking the symmetry of that deck. And that's why Control is only 5% of the meta, because you've got cards like the One Ring and Sowing Mycospawn, which are just shoving Control down and out of the meta. So I'd like to see them both go. I don't believe Wizards will ban them. But maybe next time around, if we start raising our voices now, maybe, who knows. There's plenty of other cards I don't like in Legacy that I would personally love to see go. But I don't think it's a justifiable call for their bans just yet. I think we need to solve the immediate problems of Blue-Black Reanimator and Control being dead before we curate anything from that point onwards. Unbanning-wise, I think the Legacy ban list is pretty much a solid selection of cards that deserve to be there. I know some people want Mana Drain, but I think that needs to stay on whilst the One Ring exists in Legacy. The only card I can see coming off and being fine is Frantic Search. Mind's Desire came off totally fine. Given the power level of the format these days, I think we can give Frantic Search a little try. When combo stuff in the format, right, it's Oops going on turn 1 or Echo of Eons combo decks doing pretty disgusting stuff on turn 1 or 2. I think a card like Frantic Surge that encourage players to, they make land drops, right? Frantic Surge encourages you to play more turns of the game. You want to have 3 lands, and then you can untap them. Or, 2 lands if you've got like an Ancient Tomb or whatever. But it encourages you to play more than just 1 turn of Magic in a combo deck. And I think that's a good thing. So I think that could be one that's good for unbanning. And I think Wizards might do that. Overall, though, I think if we get anything besides an Entomb ban, I would be surprised. But I think an Entomb ban is good enough. I think an Entomb ban will do what we need it to shake up the format in a positive way.
Hello, this is Johan Larsson. I'm the European Eternal Weekend Champion 2024 and server of Breakfast. I hope for a somewhat big unban of Deathrite Shaman, of Earthcraft, of Survival of the Fittest. Let the Seal loose as well, Imperial Seal, and Memory Arm. That's what I hope for. I think those cards would be fun. I don't think many of them would be very good. And yeah, some of them will be kind of expensive, which is perhaps a reason why that isn't necessarily what will happen. But Death Shaman is specifically because it would make Legacy more focused on creatures again, which I think would be nice. So what I think will happen is a Earthcraft Deathrite unban.
Hi everyone, my name is Evron. I go by Harain online as well as Moto. You can usually find me on Twitch, and I guess I have a Twitter, but mostly just Twitch. Most people know me for Stifle Knot and various other shit pile type decks. I'm excited to be here, excited to talk about my thoughts. So I have a lot of thoughts on the ban restricted list. I play a lot of Magic Online. I play a lot of Legacy. In fact, I probably play Legacy more than like 90% of people, only because I stream every night, hours and hours of leagues and challenges and prelims and what have you. So I do have a lot of thoughts on this. But before going into them, I do want to share my philosophy, and that is Legacy at its core is a grassroots community-run format. It's not outside of like fringe moto stuff. There isn't really a true WotC sanctioned competitive circuit that gets you onto the PT or worlds. Obviously, you can get to the PT, but it's like I said, it's fringe. So I'm coming at this with the basis that at its core, Legacy is a grassroots community format. Grassroots community run format. And so what I think Wizards needs to do is balance around fun and play patterns. I'll admit the current meta is balanced, but I don't think it's fun. And there's a few very specific cards for that. So if I were to have my way with Wizards, the cards that I think need to go are Sowing Mycospawn, who needs no introduction. I hate that card with every ounce of my being. I think it's such a disgusting thing to be on the other side of the table of. So that is number one on my list by far and away. There's nothing that comes close to that. Afterwards, I do think Troll of Khazad-dûm and Ring need to go. Ring only because it's just a heinous play pattern that isn't very fun. It's not interactive. It's hard to interact with outside of countering it. Like Bowmasters isn't really good enough against Ring anymore. So that needs to go. Troll, as I think, just makes UB Reanimator too consistent. I think in a world without Troll, UB Reanimator would have to actually make concessions in deck building. But right now, the deck is essentially operating on like a perfectly fueled engine, like a Ferrari V12 engine that's just engineered to the absolute max. There is so little you can do to stop this deck from doing its thing, especially game one. And I think Troll is a big part of that. It really is just the glue. Troll and Brazen Borrower are the two things that just make this deck so incredibly consistent. And I don't think it makes sense to ban Brazen Borrower. So I'm going to go ahead and say I think Troll needs to go just so that we can start seeing more deck diversity again, because I think UB Reanimator just does dominate so much of the field. And lastly, I think Nadu is probably fine right now. I think Nadu is fine because the format is so fast, because you either need to be faster than Mycospawn, so you've got your UB Reanimators, you've got your combo decks, or you need to be so resilient to Mycospawn, like Cradle Control. So it's one of those things where I think Nadu is fine right now because the format is so warped around Mycospawn existing. Even though Mycospawn isn't played much, I think the mere existence of Mycospawn absolutely decimates the format's ability to play a longer game, because the card is just uninteractable double wasteland on turn 3, which no deck that needs a mana base can beat that. Double strip mine, I'm sorry, on turn 3. So I don't want to keep ranting about Sowing Mycospawn, but that's the card that needs to go for the format to thrive, in my opinion. Now, what do I think WotC will do? I think WotC will actually ban Mycospawn. I think they're getting an understand. I think Grief and Mycospawn are similarly disgusting cards to play against. If you think the Grief play patterns are bad, then you have to admit that the Mycospawn play patterns are probably worse, in my honest opinion. So if Grief got banned for play pattern purposes, then I think Mycospawn needs to go for double that reason. I think they will ban Troll only because they've been really not liking Troll of Khazad-dûm to be UB Reanimator to be so prominent. So I do think they will ban Troll, but I'm much less. If I were to make percentage odds, I think it's 90% they ban Mycospawn, 50% they ban Troll, and 10 to 20% they ban Ring or Nadu. In terms of unbans, I don't really know what they can truly unban because admittedly Legacy has been kind of a lame duck format for the last few years. Like we've had the same decks at the top. We've had a few like introductions since MH3, obviously Nadu and Eldrazi, which have both kind of become pretty strong players, but we've had a pretty similar overall metagame for a little bit now, so it's hard for me to predict what unbans would look like. There are some cards that I think could be unbanned, and I think Mana Drain is one of them. I think it's a very risky unban, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's one of those things where when they unban it, they say like, "Hey, look, we're testing this one out." In terms of unban, I would like to see Deathrite Shaman unbanned. I think the card would actually help a lot in the format. It would say, oh, but Grixis Delver would just play it. But honestly, Delver isn't even that good right now. So if Delver gets a shot in the arm, it makes for a reason to play removal again. And I think an unsung problem in the current metagame is that there's too many decks that are attacking you in too many different ways that it's really hard to build a capable sideboard, especially if you're playing a non-hyper-tuned combo deck or hyper-tuned stompy deck. So banning Mycospawn would clear up people's consigns, which would let people play more removal, which would help against a lot of the creature decks, which, case in point, Delver. So if we did get Deathrite Shaman, it wouldn't be as bad if everyone got to run like 4 extra removal spells in their sideboard instead of having to like guarantee 4 consigns for Eldrazi and 4 graveyard hate pieces. And I forgot about Oops. Does anything need to be banned out of Oops? Probably. Do I have an educated opinion on what that should be? Honest to God, I'm clueless on what to do against Oops without hurting so many other decks. I don't think you should ban Thoracle. Banning the Memories Journey, it's kind of funny. I know a lot of people are saying Dread Return, notably the Eternal Glory podcast was saying Dread Return, which I actually like that one a lot. So anyway, to sum it up, bans that I think should happen are Mycospawn and Troll. Probably Dread Return, just because Oops is kind of a dominant force. Bans I'd like to see are Troll, Mycospawn, Nadu, and Ring, and Dread Return. Unbans I'd like to see, I'd love to see Deathrite Shaman unbanned. And it's not because I have a playset of Russian foil Deathrite Shamans that are rusting in a binder. No. I have no bias in this at all, actually. Zero. But I think, sum it up, that I think is good. Ban Mycospawn, 100% that needs to go. Unbans and other bans, I'm not super sold on.
Eternal Durdles is proud to be sponsored by Moxfield. Moxfield is the best Magic the Gathering deck building website on the internet. You can create, share, and find decks from Commander to Legacy and even fan-supported formats like Pre-Modern and Old School. You can see all of our decks on our Moxfield. Follow the links below to stay tuned.
Hey everyone, this is Robert Wilson with Buffalo Chingdip Legacy. Thanks again to Zach and Phil for having me back on to discuss the upcoming ban and restricted announcement and what may or may not happen in Legacy. I'm going to use the Eternal Glory podcast's latest episode as a jumping off point here and to recap kind of what they said and what they came to the conclusion of was, and I agree with this, there's no real problem card. There's nothing so glaringly obvious like we've had in the past that the format needs it to be removed immediately. But we're kind of seeing systemic problems in the format in terms of there are whole archetypes such as control which feel or are just completely invalidated by some cards such as Sowing Mycospawn. And that kind of violates one of the main rules of engagement for Legacy, which is messing with basic lands or cards functioning as basic lands, which is part of why Arkham's Astrolabe was banned. So they're looking at cards for this next layer that enable these problem strategies. And we kind of have this meta right now where, in addition to archetypes being non-existent, you really have a large concentration of combo decks or decks that have some kind of combo attribute to them that have really kind of swallowed the metagame. And we're kind of getting to this place where, Legacy has really sped up. And, one of the long time knocks you hear from people that don't play Legacy is, oh, it's a turn one format. Previously, that wasn't really true, but we're kind of getting more to a place where that's starting to become truer and truer because of these combo decks, and the answers just aren't keeping up with them. So looking at the metagame, you have a large group of combo decks, and really the only non-combo decks you have are Delver Tempos type strategies that, provide a quick, efficient clock and interaction, and then an outlier and kind of mono red stompy, but you could arguably call that a combo deck between fast mana and cards like Magus of the Moon and Blood Moon or Trim Sphere, or, however they want to set that up. So you have these mid-range, these control style archetypes that just aren't really present or even viable, and that's kind of a problem. So when you start looking at invalidating large portions of the card pool, you just kind of alienate a lot of players' strategies, and you kind of push them into this particular lane. So the idea of kind of hitting these bridge cards, for example, Troll of Khazad-dûm and Blue-Black Reanimator, makes sense. It pushes them into a lane where you can fight over some kind of bottleneck or choke point in a combo deck. So I like that. I mean, that's a card I would consider removing from the format if I'm WotC. And then I would also look at something from Oops All Spells. But the problem is, what do you hit from that deck? It's got redundancy in a way it never really has had before. I would start looking at maybe one of the linchpin pieces, maybe something like Balustrade Spy, and forcing them into the packs and making them need those if they want a combo. I think that could be a way to take the deck down a peg. I don't think there's really a problem in pivoting to some type of Dark Ritual enabled 3-mana creature. I think that's a strategy that's reasonable and that can be expected and dealt with. The other card I'd consider is Sowing Mycospawn, just because it does tend to violate the rules of engagement in terms of basic lands and messing with those. In terms of what do I think WotC will do, I think their history has shown us that they tend to take a light approach when it comes to Legacy, so I don't expect them to do honestly, but I think these changes would be great to open up the format and really get more people in. I mean, when Legacy feels bad, people don't show up, and I don't think we're there yet. I think the metagame is in an okay place, but I think proactively looking to see problems before they become big problems and linger for a long time, which is what has tended to happen in the past, is a good measure to take. And I think it's one WotC should consider. Thanks again for the time, and I hope to see you at some of our next BCBL events, March 22nd in Houston, Texas, and April 26th in Columbus, Ohio. More details coming on the Legacy 4 Open happening this fall soon. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Phil Gallagher, aka Thraben U. I run one of the largest Legacy YouTube channels, and I'm one of the members of the Eternal Glory podcast. Legacy is not in a great place right now, and I think it needs some decisive action. Thing number one that I think needs to happen is that something needs to be done to address control in Legacy. Control is sitting at about 15% of the format, and it is too hard to control the format right now, while also having to worry about all of your lands being destroyed by Sowing Mycospawn, sometimes in a way that completely dodges traditional interactions such as Force of Will. So I think thing number one that needs to be done for the health of Legacy is remove Sowing Mycospawn. Even though the Eldrazi deck is perhaps not one of the top tier contenders in the format right now, the pressure that it is putting on control decks is absolutely absurd. Thing number two that happens is, once again, something needs to be done about blue-black Reanimator. And I've had a long discussion about this on my own podcast, and I think you can take your pick of either knocking out Entomb or Troll of Khazad-dûm from the format to put that deck in check once again. My personal pick for it is Entomb. I think we have gone with a light touch in on blue-black Reanimator one too many times, and I think we finally need to say, like, enough is enough. You can't just slot 8 cards into your tempo deck and keep getting away with this while having a ridiculous combo finish. I would personally ban Entomb. However, I think the arguments for banning Troll of Khazad-dûm are very, very good as well, as Entomb plus Reanimate shells were fair and balanced in Legacy for many years. I personally am worried that people have solved the problem, and having Reanimate plus Entombs in a deck is still just too good if Troll is gone. But I think either one of those is a valid approach. And the final thing that I believe needs to be done to the format is doing something to address Oops All Spells. Oops All Spells for many years was a fringe player in Legacy. It was a very fast deck that had either some consistency issues or had difficulty beating hate. And now there are just so many MDFCs that there are multiple viable ways to build the mana base, either being black heavy or green heavy. That gives the deck a lot of adaptability. And with things like Memories, Journey, and Jack-o'-lantern, the deck has become very good at beating hate. And there's also a handful of different sideboard jukes, which it's very hard to tell which one your opponent is going to be playing, that also easily circumvent hate. I believe a piece or two needs to be taken out of Oops All Spells, and it just depends how much you want to neuter that deck. It is very easy to kill that deck by doing something like taking out Thassa's Oracle, but that has very large implications on other decks in Legacy, such as Doomsday. So I would advocate for maybe taking out something like Dread Return from the deck, or otherwise chipping away at the things that stop the Plan B. But it feels a little embarrassing to ban things like, say, Memories Journey or Jack-o'-lantern. That doesn't really feel like it makes sense to me on a power level thing. So I might go after something like Dread Return, or one of the 2 Oops All Spells enablers, such as Balustrade, Spy, or Undercity Informer. WotC, in their last couple of interactions with the Legacy banned list, has had a lighter touch than I would have liked. I think this would be a good moment to take a shot at 3, 4, 5 cards, even if you wanted to get Legacy back to a healthier place. However, with the wait and see mentality, I expect that we are going to have minimal changes to the format in the next BNR update. I think we will likely get something from Blue-Black Reanimator gone, and then a statement that says something like, we're keeping an eye on Oops All Spells as a deck.
Hey everybody, my name is Joe Dyer, aka Volrath XP, with MTG Goldfish This Week in Legacy. Here to kind of give my thoughts on what I think is going to happen with Legacy in the March 31st ban and restricted announcement. Personally, Blue-Black Reanimator is one of the biggest issues of the format. I do think that they're going to need to touch something from that deck. I have a feeling that it's more than likely going to be Troll of Khazad-dûm. I know that's a card that's on a lot of people's minds. I know a lot of people think that Entomb or Reanimate should go, but I do think that Troll of Khazad-dûm is kind of like that glue. What do I think Wizards is going to do, though? Anybody's guess at this point, honestly. It's kind of up in the air, and I know there's a lot of different things going on in the format right now, so who knows what they're going to do. That's just my thought on it.
Hi, it's Mario from the Legacy Small Talk. I've been playing Legacy for a long time, been playing Magic for an even longer time, and looking at the current state of the format, I think it's okay. I I think maybe needs some change, but I don't think it needs to be through bannings or unbannings for now. Just in a period that when maybe the new set will have to shake up the format. Looking at the latest results from the challenges, we've seen maybe a slightly higher number of blue-black decks, either Reanimator or Tempo, but I don't think it's I don't think it's like S tier deck or anything like that. And then with the upcoming ban announcement, I don't think the Wizards going to do anything about it. It would be cool for them to take the same approach that they did with Modern and unban some old favorites to see what happens to the format. But I don't think they're going to do anything. But yeah, so as in short, I think the format is fine, and doubt Wizards will do anything about it.
Hey all, this is Bob Huang coming in with another ban prediction as well as what I would do. So let me start with what I would do. We're in a tricky situation now because to me the format actually feels somewhat balanced in terms of I don't think there's any deck that's head and shoulders above other decks. Reanimator is definitely winning a lot. However, when you look at the deeper statistics, it's not winning significantly above 50%. In fact, a lot of tournaments it's actually below 50%. That being said, it just seems like there is general discontent with the format. People aren't necessarily as excited to play it. I feel like tournament attendance is down on Magic Online, as well as some of the in-paper events like Four Seasons was in the low 200s. I know that tournament often, has been 400 plus. So, for that reason, I do think some action should be taken. In terms of what, it was actually really hard to figure out, but I think I am landed in a spot where I would ban 2 cards and unban at least 1 card. And so the 2 cards I would have on the top of my list is number 1, I think it would be Sowing Mycospawn. I don't think Eldrazi is winning at an extreme rate, but I think what it's doing to the format by hurting control decks is really constraining what people can do. And I think that's the big part of the metagame that's missing is playing kind of the fair blue control decks or the slower decks. And I think banning Mycospawn will definitely alleviate the pressure. The second card I would ban, and this actually also goes along with the card I would unban, but I would ban the One Ring because so many Ancient Tomb decks are just built around turboing this card out. And I think people have quickly figured out if you want to, use Ancient Tomb or card advantage, whether you're a Stompy deck or a combo deck, this is the card you want to play. And I think it's just become a little bit too ubiquitous for those strategies and has been putting a lot of pressure on the format. This leads me to unbans. I think there are a bunch of cards I think that could easily be unbanned in Legacy and be totally fine. Among that list would be Mind Twist, Frantic Search, Windfall, Yawgmoth's Bargain, Earthcraft. I think those are all totally fine to unban or leave banned. I honestly don't think they make a major impact to the format, much like the unbanning of Black Vice or Land Tax. So I'm totally fine if they stay banned or unbanned. I just don't really think they're a big deal. The card I think that could be interesting to unban would be Mana Drain. Right now, Mana Drain, I don't even know for sure if it would see play. It's definitely one of the more powerful cards. There aren't that many great things to do with it if you ban the One Ring. So I think that by banning the One Ring and unbanning Mana Drain, perhaps there's another avenue for control decks to explore. That card used to be a staple of Vintage. Now it's so weak it's not even played in Vintage for the most part. And so I think it could be potentially unbanned in Legacy. I'm fairly confident that it would be somewhat safe. It could probably breathe some life into the control archetype. And that's where I would kind of stop. So unban Mana Drain, ban One Ring, ban Mycospawn. Reanimator is really powerful, but I don't think it's necessarily winning at an extremely high rate, so I'm okay leaving it. So those are the 3 changes I would make. In terms of what I expect Wizards of the Coast to do, I think they're not going to do anything. They're probably going to look at the numbers, look at the format, and say, hey, nothing's winning at an extreme rate. We're not going to do anything. I am kind of, sad in a way that that's probably what they're going to do. But hey, maybe they'll surprise me. So we'll see.
Finding the right high-end cards for Legacy, Vintage, Pre-Modern, or Old School Magic can be challenging. That's where friends 3-for-1 trading come in.
3-for-1 Trading is one of Europe's top Magic the Gathering retailers with an incredible selection of premium singles, sealed product, and even full sets, all available with free, fast, and secure worldwide shipping.
They add fresh inventory every Wednesday with weekly deals and discounts. So whether you're hunting for that elusive piece of power, a legacy staple, or something spicy for your collection, they've got you covered.
First high-end orders over $500 or €500, use the code EDFREE to get free worldwide shipping.
Check them out now at the number 3, the number 4, the number 1.gg/ED. That link takes you right to the shop and helps support the channel.
Huge thanks to 3for1 Trading for supporting the Legacy community. Now back to the show.
Everyone, Sahama Hardy here from the Legacy Gambit, known Legacy enthusiast, eternal format gamer. What do I think about the Legacy format right now? You know what? I actually think it's in this weird dichotomy where it is diverse enough, and there are decks that are getting their time in the sun. You know, the combo decks never had it so good. You know, stompy decks have never had it so good. Blue decks have never had it so good. But there is an underlying apathy within the community right now. And I think a lot of players have checked out. And I think that has been a notable thing from both Grief, Frog, metas, Vexing Bauble, the like. And I think it has just burnt out a lot of players. So we're in this spot where whilst it's very active and people are still playing Legacy, the numbers are certainly dropping. Certainly in Paper Magic, perfect example of this is I was at the Four Seasons event in Italy, where it would have 450 players. There was 250. That is a noticeable drop in numbers. So for me, what I think that the next BNR needs to do, similar, I actually would like them to do what they did in Modern, is to just give everything a bit of a shakeout, spring clean, if you will, folks, to let some toys out. I'm not really sure what toys yet, but just some toys. You know, whether it's Deathfry Shaman, whether it's, you know, maybe not Ragavan, but maybe Ragavan. Just get some toys out the pram. Just get some stuff out, and let people just kind of go at it. Because what I think we need more than anything is just some excitement, some zazz, for want of a better word, for players to feel like there is a reason to play Legacy right now. Because right now, people just don't want to play Legacy. There's a bunch of people playing Modern. We saw what happened with Modern. There was a lot of people got excited. And yes, Underworld Breach is broken, but so what? It was going to be broken anyway. And I think that's what's going to happen. As for bans, the thing is I'm not the best at ban talk, because I always think there's, you know, for one, you need another thing and things like that. So I much prefer the unbans. But if we're going to ban anything, oh god, like I've seen people call for Sowing Mycospawn and Kozilek's Command purely from like a gameplay experience part. Sure, I also think Eldrazi's probably fine and it's got its time in the sun, but I would rather see unbans, because I don't think there's a deck right now that is quote unquote the best. There is a lot of good decks, but if the community is about, if it's about community sentiment, you ban things based on the player experience and the player feedback, as well as the data. There's a weird balancing act you don't have to do. But I would definitely go for unbans. Just take a bunch of stuff out, say we'll review it in a year, and then move on with our lives. So that's my 2 cents of what I think should happen at the end of the month. So what I think Wizards will do. So I think Wizards are probably going to do nothing. And that's actually the worst case scenario, because I think they need to do something. Bans-wise, they might just ban Sowing Mycospawn purely from like a gameplay experience thing of like, we didn't anticipate double wastelanding was going to be that broken in the format. You know, ergo, we're going to ban it. And then maybe look at... I don't think they're going to ban Reanimator or Entomb. I think we just accept that Reanimator is just part of the format and we move on. But Sowing Mycospawn is probably my one hit they're going to do. But even then, I'm not happy with it. What I would ultimately like them to do, though, is take some stuff off the unban list, shake the format and be like, you know what? Here's some toys. Do what you did with Modern. Look how excited the Modern players got. Let the Legacy players also be this excited. So, probably just Sowing Mycospawn probably gets the axe, and I don't think that is even good enough. But I think you need to shake the apathy out of the player base, and the only way you do that is by giving players new toys. So that's my 2 cents.
Hello, my name is Fenris Cloud, probably best known for playing Infect, but usually now these days I play Control occasionally. And let me start by saying what I think I would like to see banned, which is pretty much aligned with what I would expect Wizards to do. And it's basically just cut something from Reanimator, but for good this time. We've been seeing something being cut from Reanimator for, I think, every single ban update for maybe half a year, if not longer. And if you ask me, it's time to rip off the Band-Aid, and I would want something very important to be banned from the shell, because we can continue banning small stuff, but it just rises to the top every single time. So if you ask me, I would personally like to see Entomb banned. It's been banned before, and it's just way too powerful, if you ask me. But what I would expect Wizards to do is, I'm afraid of them doing nothing, but I have hope. I have hope that they will ban something, but I expect that they will probably ban, if anything, something like Reanimate itself. That would be my guess.
Hello, I'm Kelvin Wallace. I'm the 2024 North American Legacy Eternal Weekend champion. And the cards I would like to see go in Legacy are largely around Oops All Spells being incredibly dominant online, but horrendous vibes to play. Eldrazi and like the other Mycospawn decks, not really post, but like Mycospawn in general, pushing control decks out of the format, and then also look at the continued dominance of Blue-Black Reanimator. So Oops is a kind of hard deck to hate, mainly because its power is that it's a turn 1 combo deck with a bunch of pivots and backup. And it doesn't make a lot of sense both banning the kill like Thassa's Oracle, because it's pretty easy for them to just transfer over to something like Gauntlet Giant. And also doesn't really make a lot of sense to really ban one of the enablers, like the Spy or the other one, or like Poxwalker. So I think to actually combat the archetype, I think it may be time for Dread Return to go. Even though that do some breakfast splash damage, I think the naughty variant would still survive. Out of Reanimator, I have enjoyed the playing against and playing all in Reanimator, mainly Entomb Reanimate. And I think the card that actually broke the shell is the Troll. Troll of Khazad-dûm allows a Reanimator deck to not actually rely on Entomb and not be an A+B combo deck, and just be a fetch land plus Reanimate combo deck. So even though it may look pretty embarrassing on the ban list in a couple of years, someone doesn't know, I would ban Troll of Khazad-dûm out of the Blue-Black Reanimator deck. And additionally, over the past 6 months, we have not really seen any consistent viable control deck besides like a few one-off challenge wins. And Swords to Plowshares is at one of its all-time like lowest play rates. So and for that case, even though Eldrazi's not really doing numbers, I would ban Sowing Mycospawn, because I believe that is the card that is really pushing the slow decks out of the format and keeping Legacy as a format with a pivotal turn on like turn 2.5. Which is an improvement from the end of last year, but still not a great place for the format to be. So what I think WotC would do is, I don't think WotC is going to go after Mycospawn. Just the data and the win rates are not there, even if the vibes and kind of warped metagame is still there. I don't think they're going to go after Troll either, mainly just because it just doesn't look right. So I think WotC is going to ban Entomb. And I have no idea how they're going to address Oops. I'm pretty sure that their internal data says that Oops is broken when it is played, but I don't really know what their perspective is on how to actually attack that deck. So I'm pretty sure the card's going is something out of Oops, which I don't really know what, and then Entomb and or Reanimate. I just want to see some unbans as well, because there's a lot of cards that are probably fine in the format. So the card I think it's most likely to be unbanned is Frantic Search, just because it's slightly more fair reanimation card, and man is going to be played in high tide combo decks, which are fun. But then stuff like obviously Mind Twist, Earthcraft, and cards like that, I don't think they're going to be unbanned just because of reserve list reasons. But I would like to see them unbanned, because even though they're probably going to be unplayable, it'll be fun to brew with for a couple weeks.
Hello, everybody. My name is Robin Svensson. I am a co-host of the Stockholm Legacy Report, and I am a Legacy-only paper player. And I think that the deck that could need some attention is the blue and black Reanimator deck. That is the deck that has been putting up most results lately. and has been terrorizing the format for a long, long time. And I think there are quite a few possible like surgical bans that can go and hurt this deck, such as Troll of Khazad-dûm, Reanimate, and Entomb. And I think that any of these cards would probably do the job. But what I would like even more is an unbanning of the Deathrite Shaman. I think that at the time when it was banned, it was a very powerful card. And since then, there has been printed a lot of other powerful cards, so it would be in a better company now, so to say. And it would also be like a main deck card that would hose black, blue Reanimator and all the Reanimator variants, of course. And I think it would also give a bump for fair decks against decks such as Upsol spells, against Eldrazi, because you get a little bit of ramp yourself to sort of keep up with the mana destruction and like Ancient Tomb and Solar Lands of the Stompy decks. So I think that would be an interesting unban. Of course, it's a very powerful card. It's possible that it would skew a lot of decks towards black and green. But like the meta is already quite black and green, so I don't think it would hurt all that much. What I think that WotC will do is they will say that there is inconclusive evidence for a deck being too powerful, and that they will wait and see how the format shakes out. That's all for me.
Hi, I'm Armark. I think bans are a good idea. First, let's talk about what I want to see banned in Magic the Gathering for the Legacy format, and why I believe players actually play the format. Some people have said that players play the format because they want to play busted cards. However, I sort of disagree with that. I think it's busted cards plus they do want a degree of agency outside of the deck that you choose, the sideboard, and the mulligan choice. So I evaluate the format as being kind of like a land a haymaker or prevent the opponent from being able to land a haymaker at this point in time. And I don't really think that's the most interactive format. So my point in a sense is the format is just like a bunch of 2-for-1s, or you force a will, or you deal with it, say through discard or something like that, or a hate bear. And that, or you just win right away. So the cards that I'm kind of talking about, I'm not saying these are the ones that necessarily should be banned, are like the One Ring, Nadu, Atraxa, Tameo, the Cringe Initiative cards, Sowing Mycospawn, Glaring Fleshraker, Orcish Bowmaster. They're all like 2-for-1s, you know? Like they land, and if you don't deal with them, they win the game. Or even cards like, say, Nadu or the One Ring, if you don't counterspell it, it replaces itself. Sowing Mycospawn, you know, you can't really deal with that when it's kicked in a way that I guess there's like 1 or 2 narrow cards, but you have to have mana up. So cards like also like DRC or White of the Reliquary, Elvish Reclaimer, Chalice, Troll are also cards that like eventually become 2-for-1s. Like you untap with them, and then they're creating 2-for-1s. So it's really not like a draw go format. The format feels like every permanent is pretty much must kill or much never touch the battlefield for those permanents that I named earlier. And the other things are like just like Oops All spells and Doomsday, which just kind of kill you before anything really matters. So I think that's really where the format is, and I would like to see a shakeup. So I propose we ban the One Ring, because the One Ring is just too easy to put in any deck with like soul lands. And it kind of feels like a time walk, except for your opponent draws 3 cards before you could do anything. So it's like force a will or have like a Pithing Needle in play already, or you lose more or less, which I don't really think is great. You could also hit like Sowing Mycospawn, and I think that would be cool. But I would sooner see the One Ring go, because it's just easier to splash. You don't have to have green mana. I don't like the Reanimate deck, but I think Atraxa would be a good start. I don't want to see that deck like just totally vanish. That think other options would be like you could hit Daze, or you could hit like the Troll, which I think might hurt the tempo version a good enough, so that way, it's not the tempo version playing it. Gristlebrand, I think, has been like kind of outclassed, which is crazy to say, and I don't think Gristlebrand is as good as Atraxa because you have to take 7 in order to use it. I mean, if you draw 7 cards, you win anyway, more or less, but like if you don't play like Lotus Petal, that card gets a lot worse. I think Atraxa, like if you draw 4 cards and you have a 7/7 in play, like it's pretty much game anyway. Like you don't really need the 3 extra cards, in most cases. Oops All Spells is pretty cringe. I think that goes against what I said I think people play the format for, which is just like the deck choice, the sideboard choice, and the mull choice is just the entirety of the game. So you could ban Thassa's Oracle, ladies. Not too sure why I said ladies on that. But you also could ban like Undercity Informer or the Spy card. And I think that would be fine. I really think that every deck that I have to build pretty much has to play either Force of Will or main deck Endurance, or you just have to be on the play with like turn 1 Thoughtseize or Chalice or something. And I think that's a pretty stale way to play it, or like 4 Leyline of the Void and just hope they can't deal with it. Nadu, I think, will sooner or later be an issue. I don't think it's getting as much play right now, but I think it's less played on MTGO because I think of how the client works. There's something weird in paper where, like, if you activate, say, the Nomads once, it's hard to know if you did it twice. Like, if you play a card like back in the Elves deck or even Scrib Ranger, you would flip the card upside down to show that you used it once. There really isn't like a show that you've used it once or twice. You kind of need dice or counters, and I don't think that's great for gameplay. I also think eventually when the tryhards get back into the format and there's like an EW, I think that's going to be like one of the best decks when the tryhards really get their spin on it. So that being said, that's kind of what I think should go. And what will they do? What will Wizards do? What are Wizards doing? Nothing. There's not been enough complaining. At this point, if you look at all the bans, even like Ragavan at a certain point, they were like, it didn't reach that 55% win rate. I don't know how true that is, but I think that is what they're looking for. I think that's been like the measure of something should go. And I just don't think that even cards that were obvious, like Frog and like Ragavan, to those who really play the format, White Plume Adventure, I don't think they cited that 55%. And I just think it's going to take another big event like an EW or something like that to happen. And until then, I think we're just going to have a cringe format until people get on, social media and complain enough. And I'm off the grid, man. So maybe they are complaining.
Hey, this is Alex Sargent from Sarge Presents. For Legacy, I think that nothing should be banned, and I don't think that Wizards is going to ban anything.
Hello, my name is David Marchese, and while I don't think there's necessarily an overtly S-tier deck in the meta right now, I do think the meta is too much stompy and combo decks. The meta is too quick. Your first 7 cards matter more than ever. For conservative bans, just to attempt to slow down the meta, I think just Sowing Mycospawn. I know a lot of people also want something from Dimir Reanimator, and I would never be sad to see anything go from that. Overall, I would also prefer maybe like a general flattening of the power level. There's quite a few candidates I would be fine with hitting, but I doubt Wizards will go in that direction. I would not be in the least bit surprised to see no changes in Legacy from Wizards, solely because I think outside of Dimir Reanimator's top 8 representation in online challenges and whatnot, like it's been a pretty even spread of decks, so no changes would not surprise me in any way.
My name is Eric Ratkowski. I'm Taller Eric on Discord and Artisan on MTGO. I am a unrepentant Legacy grinder, and I am so glad that this decision is not actually mine to make. I'm going to start with what I think WotC will do. I think they're going to ban Entomb and Sowing Mycospawn. They've showed a tendency to do the easiest thing. I think that's what they're going to do. Entomb was already banned. There's enough of an outcry that Mycospawn will go. But That's not what I think they should do. And I'm only mid on thinking the chances that they're going to do that are really good because Eldrazi doesn't have the numbers, or people would complain too much about Entomb killing other stuff. So what I think they should do, something's got to go from Reanimator. If it was me, I would pick Troll to leave other stuff around. But again, I'm glad I don't have to make that specific decision. I would personally ban Kozilek's Command. I think that card, it doesn't get talked about enough. It is egregious because it is essentially free. If they choose the spawn mode on it, they get all the casting costs back. That's on top of it already being heavily discounted because they only play soul lands, and their Eldrazi lands make it cost even less. I think that card is the real problem. Eldrazi's always been about big monsters, so Sowing Mycospawn, it doesn't even matter that they can cast it uncastable because all the cast triggers just come on Sowing Mycospawn anyway. Whatever. I know maybe both those cards are too bad, but I would ban those two things, Troll and Kozilek's Command, and I would unban Dreadhorde Arcanist and Wrenn and 6. I know you want attention to be paid to this, so I'm going to say something controversial. I don't think that tempo decks would necessarily put those cards back in. If they've skewed so black and blue, red doesn't show up all the time. It is obviously there in Teamer Delver, but if you had to go heavier green for Wrenn and 6, maybe that's fine. You're still vulnerable to opposing Wrenn and 6s. You can't play that many basics. And Dreadhorde Arcanist might take the place of Psychic Frog, but it doesn't scale in the same way. Yeah, maybe it's drawing you a card every turn, but it stays a 1/3. So maybe Legacy could bear those now.
Hey everybody, my name is Ryan Nicholas, aka Tron is Bad on all social medias. I want to first and foremost say thank you for having me and letting me do this. What I think is going on in Legacy right now, look at the current statistics, look at the current standings of the current top decks. You have Reanimator almost at like 14% of the meta, and then you have mono red Stompy, and then you also have you have a Teamer Delver. You have Delver coming back as one of the top decks in the format, which is awesome. You have Teamer Tempo because Delver's Legacy is always a Delver format. And then you also have Eldrazi Stompy. And Eldrazi Stompy is my favorite deck. It's what I currently play. But what I think can be improved with the Legacy format is getting rid of Entomb. Entomb is such a powerful piece of the blue-black Reanimator package. Without that, I think that they would have to look for other resourceful ways to pitch their Reanimator targets. It is such an enabler, and that's why I think that most of the format right now, with a whopping like 14% of the tier 1 decks, are blue-black Reanimator. What I think that WotC will do, I don't think that they will do anything, unfortunately. I don't think that Legacy is currently in a place to where WotC is going to look at it and be like, you know what, we need to immediately change this. I really hope that they are going to change it. I hope that they're going to do something about Entomb. Some can also say that, especially with Eldrazi Stompy, people think that Sowing Mycospawn is an egregious Magic card. I think that Magic card is awesome, and it's one of my favorite cards to cast, so I hope that it does not get touched. But what I hope happens, I hope something happens to Reanimator. I hope that Entomb gets hit. What I think that WotC will do, I don't think that they're going to ban anything, but I think that you could see some potential unbans. And I'm always hoping that Deathrite Shaman gets unbanned, but that's a fever dream. So that's what I think. Thank you so much.
So this is Daniel from the In Response podcast, and in the current discussion that is upcoming for the next BNR announcement for WotC, here's a couple of things that I would do, or I would expect at least. So first of all, what I would do is I would make no changes personally, because at the moment I think the format is still not super dipping in one kind of deck direction. We see a little bit of a strong tip into the blue-black Reanimator deck that is still running quite rampant. It has the most meta share, but I don't think it's too overwhelming at this point. And also at the same time think that WotC would also do that. So I expect actually no changes from their side. If anything, and this is maybe something to add at the end here, what could make sense and what I would personally watch is from this deck specifically Troll of Khazad-dûm, because I think it adds too much, or maybe it depends on how this is all shaping up, but it may be the case that this ends up being too consistent for the deck. It's basically a free entomb effect, and mana fixing, all accountable for one colorless mana. So in that case, this would be the card to watch for me, but other than that, I don't think there will be any changes going into this B9 announcement.
Hello, I'm Peter Plank from the In Response, a Legacy podcast, and I'm here to talk about the recent, wait a minute, upcoming, not recent. Hello, I'm Peter Plank from the In Response, a Legacy podcast, and we are here to talk about the upcoming banned restricted announcement for Legacy. For me, I feel like we kinda have a really long time the top dog of the format with Blue-Black Reanimator, and I feel that the meta still have issues to adapt to the deck. So I think I would see here a little bit of a downplay of the deck with a banning of either Entomb to discard the aggressive graveyard strategy, or even the Troll to downplay the fair side of the deck. Other than that, to see what will be happening, I feel like that we won't get any changes to the format. Because even though Blue-Black Reanimator is kind of on the top-heavy side of the meta with around 15-16%, it's still not as far as it was back in the days. So I feel like we get a little bit of a watch list of Blue-Black Reanimator cards in access, maybe even Mycospawn, as it's a tool to be really good, especially against control strategies to empower them. So I feel like we have a small watch list and will not have any changes to the metagame.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so my name's Philip Klein. I'm from the In Response, a Legacy podcast, and okay, let's start again. Okay, I always take need 1 to 2 takes to simply get it. Yeah. So howdy, folks. I'm Philip Klein at FinnickMTG on socials. I'm from the In Response, a Legacy podcast, and I'm here to talk about bannings. So thank you very much, Zach, for having me on. It's nice to be here. So, what has to change in Legacy? In my opinion, I'm a huge proponent of banning Troll of Khazad-dûm. In my opinion, Troll is the only right thing to do here, to simply bring Blue-Black Reanimate a little bit, down a notch, basically. Just give Blue-Black Reanimate the only 4 search effects. Is fine enough. Basically, in my opinion, it's like if you have 4 of the best cards in your deck that of 4 of the best tutors basically in the deck that nets you any creature that you can have, it's enough. You don't need free uncontrollable mana fixing 6/5s with super manas on top of that. So that's basically my opinion. I'm pretty sure that will fix a lot of problems. Also, Sowing Mycospawn is a pretty big contender for the Axe. It's the sheer existence of Sowing Mycospawn in the meta has put Control under so much pressure that it simply can't shine, and I'm unsure that it can really leverage its strength and can be built correctly for the metagame as long as Sowing Mycospawn exists. And also, additionally, Sowing Mycospawn is also the reason for Mono Red Stompy being great, because the Eldrazi matchup is such a buy. So yeah, if we ban maybe Mycospawn alongside Troll, I think it has a positive impact on the metagame. Control can shine again. We bring Reanimator down a notch. We bring also Mono Red down a notch with banning Mycospawn. And yeah, in my opinion, that's a net positive in the format. And then we can look further. Then maybe we can take a look at unbanning. So that's what the real deal is about. So thank you very much, Zach, for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here. What you will do? No changes. What you will do? No changes. That's what I expect from them. I think it's fine if they do no changes and revisit the BNR announcement in 3 months. In my opinion, that's kind of okay. Although I think it's a missed opportunity to have one of the probably best legacy formats in a long time. So it's not that like the legacy format right now is bad, but it's improvable. Let me say it like right.
Yo, what's up? It's Dula. Legacy ban discussion back again. What should they do? What do I want? What do I want? Couple things. Number one, and this is probably, there's a couple universes we could live in. One universe, they unban Earthcraft. All of our problems are solved. The meta is perfect. People are, crying out in the streets, parades. That's, all I'm saying, that's a world we could live in, a perfect utopian world. It's an option that WotC has. So I think as a community, we should all just band together and just say, hey, let's do it. Hey, frick it, let's do it. Unban Earthcraft, save the world. That's one universe we could live in. Another universe we could live in, they ban a whole bunch of stuff, pretty much everything that I want, which I, in the last ban discussion, ran down. And I caught some flack for that. So instead of going back over the cards, because I think all the cards are the same, I'll just add a little bit of clarity as to why I said those cards, or kind of my underlying philosophy for bans, which is I don't care too much about metagame share. I don't care too much about all that, top 8 performances and stuff. If cards are just lead to disgusting play patterns, or the cards themselves are mistakes, I think they should be banned. So case in point, Narset Parter of Veils, 3 mana, mono blue planeswalker that stops opponents from drawing cards. Are we what? No. You just ban the card. I don't care. I don't care that it's 1% of the meta. You just ban the card. So that kind of leads into, where we are at with Legacy, I'd say, with oops, all spells, and just there's a lot of turn 0, turn 1, quote unquote force check decks. Although the force isn't really enough because they just have discard spells, so it doesn't really even help. This stuff is stupid. The stuff's stupid, and that's okay for if you're playing the game. I guess let's say it's more palatable when you're hopping on a computer to jam leagues, right? Like that type of gameplay, because you're just at home. There's not really much investment besides the platform, cards on the platform, that sort of thing. But when you're a person who has a family, work, and all this other type of stuff, and you actually touched on it, Zach, in your one article, when you have all that stuff going on, and it's oh, I'm gonna not do that, I'm gonna go drive to the LGS and play this game. If you're not doing that degenerate combo stuff, there's no shot you're going. You're not traveling to a tournament to get turn 1. There's no way. You're not doing that. You can play. Excuse me. Am I allowed to curse? Is that okay? Okay. You can play 8 force of wills. 4 forces of will and 4 force of negations. Live your life like that. But that's just stupid to me, and I don't even think that would be successful even against those combo decks. But that type of stuff, it shouldn't be in the format. I don't care. I don't think that standard or modern has to be the only place where we have kind of self-respect for ourselves as players of a game to say, we don't want it in the format. I don't want to participate in that. It's not cool. It's dumb, uninteresting gameplay. It doesn't matter to me. that games 2 and 3 you can like play ley lines and do this and that. I just don't care. I don't think it should be in the format, and I think it should be banned and get over it. Another thing, another universe we could live in. I think I'm on universe 3. Am I on universe 3? Yeah. Third universe. And it's a sad universe, somewhat sad. You stop playing Legacy. You just stop playing. And I know a decent amount of people, they've just stopped playing Legacy. They play Canadian Highlander, play Pre-Modern, play one of the other formats that's not Legacy, and have fun that way. And it's sad, but just step away. And then the fourth universe is, kind of an offshoot of the third. You start a new format, and that format is basically Pre-Modern, but we're going to add duels. We're going to add some retro frame cards, and make sure the power level is still kind of at the Pre-Modern power level, maybe a little bit higher, closer to like old Legacy, like the, back when like, Sneak and Show was like the premier combo deck, right? Something like that. That's what I think. But what will they do? They will probably do nothing. If anything, they might have like the, somewhat of a noble urge to say we made a mistake with Nadu and we're just getting rid of Nadu because it's a pure mistake, and Nadu will have to just live in Vintage. But yeah, I don't really see a lot of hope for Legacy stopping being a turn 0, turn 1 type format, force checky thing. There's there's all the pillars and stuff, and I don't know. Just don't really think they're going to do much. So that's what I think.
Hello, I'm Billy Mitchell from the Dark Dev Podcast, your go-to place for the modern Legacy format. I know we have a ban announcement coming up, so trying to imagine what I would do if I were in charge of the decision. I'm not sure if I am in the majority of the minority, but I would like to think that I don't think the format is particularly fun right now. I do think there are some things that they have not quite figured out that they tried to do over the past couple of years. I think one of the things that they're going to end up looking back at is kind of going back to the Grief and Psychic Frog. I think they're going to end up taking something from Reanimator. I think we're finally going to get rid of Entomb. I think that's something like we could very easily that I would get rid of to make sure that we have a format that's a little bit more balanced. I also, and I don't know if this is, again, a hot take or not, I'm really, really annoyed by Oops. I'm not sure exactly, though, if you can ban all of the double-faced cards. So I feel like you would have to go after either Ballasford Spy or the whatever the other one is. I'm not sure if those cards are worth banning in Legacy, though, in terms of power level, but just in terms of enjoyment of the format, that's what I would go after. I don't think that Wizards is going to do any of that, though. Unfortunately, I think Entomb has a shot of going, but I actually think they would go after something like Reanimator, something that is a little more like apparently powerful instead of something that is a good enabler. I think that's kind of a shame, though, because I do think Reanimator has some really nice positioning in some mid-range matchups and things like that. Obviously, reanimating a Traxa is a different story. So I think they're going to end up going for that. But I don't think that we're going to see any other changes going into it. I would love to see them go after something in Eldrazi as well. But I don't think that's going to end up happening. So fingers crossed.
Hello, everybody. My name is Stephen Ehrlich. Some of you may know me on YouTube as Das Sauerkraut. With the upcoming ban and restriction announcement that's coming up, I have some thoughts on Legacy as a whole and what I would like to see and what I think WotC will end up doing. To start out, there is the elephant in the room, which is the domination of the format by the blue-black Reanimator deck. And I've seen a couple of different proposals of how you attack this deck. Do you attack the Reanimator side of it? Do you attack the tempo side of it? And what you would ban in order to do that. If you attack the Reanimator side of it, you could take out Reanimate, you could take out Entomb. I don't personally think that this is the side that you should attack. If the Entomb Reanimate package in and of itself was a problem, we would be seeing issues with traditional combo Reanimator stomping around the format as well, but it's virtually non-existent at this point. I believe that it is actually the tempo side of the deck that is protecting the combo is actually what is enabling it to dominate. And we've seen ever since the top ban that these blue X tempo decks are perpetually at the top of the format and at times oppressive depending on how they build their shell and what cards are available at that given time. If you do go after the tempo side, you start looking at banning Wasteland, Daze, Force of Will, which obviously are format pillars, and a lot of people are not open to even discussing touching those cards. I think a fair compromise to not nuke either side of the deck and not nuke either archetype entirely would be to ban Troll of Khazad-dûm. It leans into both halves of the deck and enables both of them. It gives a quick, strong reanimation target that can get into the graveyard in a virtually uninteractable way that they can then get back out of the graveyard. And it also allows the deck to be able to function and smooth out its mana in what is a very mana-light deck and be able to function through hate pieces that should be able to restrict the deck, such as Blood Moon, by being able to just go find your one of basic swamp even around it and still be able to continue on with your game plan as if nothing happened. Additionally, I feel that the rise of the colorless Ancient Tomb decks has been an issue that a lot of people have been pointing out as well. And I feel the card that really puts these strategies above and beyond the rest of the format at this point is actually Kozilek's Command. Modal spells are always very strong, but a modal spell that also scales as the game progresses is just insane. The card does pretty much a little bit of everything. It is card selection, it is ramp, it is graveyard hate, it is removal, and it's colorless. It's kind of just spitting in the face of the color pie and exacerbating the issue that some people are talking about, how the color pie doesn't even matter in terms of Magic anymore. It also leads into these combo-esque finishes with Glaring Fleshraker, where you can just cast a Kozilek's Command to scry and draw, make a bunch of dorks, to find another Kozilek's Command, to keep going, to allow your opponent to burn you out of the game from a position where you may have been able to lock the game down, and be able to win through a lot of the hate that works against these style of decks, such as null rod effects, that would normally shut down their mass mana production. The last card that I personally would like to see banned is Nadu Winged Wisdom. I don't think that card is above Legacy power level wise, but I believe the logistics and the gameplay patterns of that card are just not healthy. I do not like advocating for play pattern or fun bans, so to speak, as fun is a subjective criteria. What is fun for one person is miserable for another, and vice versa. However, due to the amount of time and game actions it takes to be able to go through the Nadu combo, and the fact that it's not deterministic, means the best thing you can do in a competitive environment is just let your opponent do it and hope for the minuscule chance that they fizzle or they time out. Add into the fact that the interface on MTGO specifically is really, really clunky and non-conducive for executing this combo, because there's no way to show what you have already targeted and haven't. That if you get into a position where you are flooding the board with tokens with a Springheart Nantuko, you or your opponent are basically just sitting there clicking on random tokens, hoping that they're not ones you have already targeted, and just further adding game actions, wasting time, and just creating a logistical nightmare. So I don't think it's above the power level for Legacy, but the play pattern is just unhealthy and should not be in the format. As far as unbans I would like to see, I believe Earthcraft and Mind Twist are kind of laughable on the ban list at this point. I don't think they would have any huge effect on the format, and they very much seem within the power level what the format's doing, given all of the power creep from Modern Fire Design. Selfishly, I would like to see Deathrite Shaman come off of the ban list. I think that control decks could use the 1 mana Planeswalker to help become a presence in the format right now, as true control basically doesn't exist at this point. There are also a lot of really cool, kind of funky 4-color piles and stuff that simply don't really exist right now because of the hate that's running around the format, completely shutting out those greedy mana bases. and Deathrite Shaman would kind of allow those to still be able to function through those hate pieces without being oppressive given the current state of the format. A couple cards I think should be on the watch list, but I don't think are ready to call for a ban yet. Orcish Bowmasters, everyone has been saying that's just going to slot back into the blue-black Reanimator deck to replace Frog. It is a noticeable downgrade, and I think the card is about one ability too strong. Whether they got rid of the Flash or they got rid of the ETB or something like that, I think it would make it a perfectly acceptable card, but I think it's not quite to the point where we need to be calling for that to be banned yet. It's not oppressive. It doesn't stop an opponent's game plan. It is just a very powerful card, but one that should be on the watch list. Additionally, I think Sowing Mycospawn should be on a watch list as well. I don't think that card is oppressive enough to call for banning it either. Some people are saying that it single-handedly is preventing control from being a presence in the format. I'm not a control player. I don't really have the experience and the reps to say that that is what's happening. So I can't really speak to that specifically, but the decks that do run Sowing Mycospawn, while it is very undercosted for what it does come with legitimate deck building restrictions, limiting it to one or two decks that can actually realistically play it effectively. So I think that should be on a watch list, but I'm not quite ready to call for a ban on that yet. As far as what I think WotC's actually going to do, I think they're not going to ban anything. By the numbers, nothing looks crazy and out of sorts. The top of the meta, from their perspective, looks diverse. You've got combo, you've got stompy, you've got tempo. The only thing not really represented at the current moment is hardcore control, but I don't necessarily know if they would make a distinction between that and the tempo strategies. So given WotC's history of how they approach this format, I think they're either going to take a very light touch and maybe ban Troll of Khazad-dûm, just so that they're not banning a pillar card to sort of nerf the top deck of the format, or they're just not going to ban anything and say they have a couple of cards on the watch list and they will address it at the next BNR if anything shows itself to be a clear problem.
So my name is Victor Bernhards. I'm one of the co-hosts of the Stockholm Legacy Report podcast, and I do not think that we need any bannings in Legacy right now. Looking at which decks plays well in bigger events, both online and on paper, I would say it's a diverse metagame. I'm hearing people complaining about the need to ban boring cards, or the need to ban cards that are unfun gameplay. But these cards don't really show up in decks that show up in sort of the top 16s, top 32s in great numbers. So I think you're just going to have to live with that some cards are not to your liking, but if they aren't oppressive, that's okay. However, I do, as I have repeatedly said on your podcasts on this topic, I really want us to unban Mana Drain. I think it would be great in the format and add flavor. So no bannings, but unban Mana Drain, please.
Hey everyone, I'm Tony Scaponi. I'm sure you know me from my Twitch, YouTube. I primarily play Legacy Magic the Gathering, which is what we're talking about here today. What do I think they should do? What should WotC do for the format? I think they should do something sweeping, something similar to what they did with Modern. I think that they have printed so many problems right now that there's all sorts of different arguments as to what you should ban. But I think the problem is there are so many, there's a bunch of arguments that are correct, and that's the problem. So I think they need to do something sweeping. I think it's pretty unanimous that a number of things could be unbanned, but I wouldn't expect them to do that. I would love it if they did. I really would. I think they should. But the problem is the results are, there's no one deck that is dominating. There is, a number of decks in the meta. The problem is that the vast majority of them are combo decks. And though there are different decks, they're very similar experiences. And I do think a lot of us are totally fed up with it. So I do think they should do something significant, but if they go with a light touch, I don't think it's really going to do anything. So, and what do I think they're going to do? I think they're going to do one of two things. I think they're going to either do nothing, because the results would suggest that there are a large handful of decks that are doing well in the meta, or they're going to see just how much people loved Modern changing up so much. Of course, they need to fix that again, but initially there was a huge surge of excitement. A lot of people loved it, and since the BNR announcements are fairly what, every couple months, few months, whatever it is, you can take a swing at a format like that. And one of the benefits of doing that is that now your player base knows that you're willing to do that. So even in the event that you miss, it's okay. And I think the player base will be okay with it because they know it's not going to be forever, and they know that you're willing to do something about it. So I don't know. I'm hopeful that they do something. I really hope they don't do nothing. I don't think they're going to go with the light touch approach again. I don't think there's any data to suggest that. I don't think the community sentiment is there for that. And I don't think there's just no reason to do like one or two things. I think it's either they're going to say they need more time, more data, or they're going to do something wild. As far as an unban, I mean, I would love to see Mana Drain and Mind Twist. Honestly, I think those are both cards that are good enough to do something and change some things, but I think they're pretty obviously not just broken. But we'll see what happens. I'm hopeful of some sort of change. Thanks for having me.
Hello, I'm Christoph Wikström of Stockholm Legacy Report, and here are my takes on the ban restricted announcement. So first, what I hope they would do. I actually changed my opinion on something quite recently, and that is the banning of Orcish Bowmaster, because I don't really think that when it comes to fun play patterns for Legacy, I don't really think that card contributes a lot. And being a player who enjoys drawing extra cards, mostly as a player who enjoys Strixes and Quattles, it's just been a real bummer. But I'm very guilty of playing this card. So, I'm not the good guy here. But since we're on the topic of what I hope that they would do, some years ago, I had this meme wherever there was a planned restricted announcement, I would say unban survival. I know it's a high price limit of the card, but when it comes to just how viable the card is in Legacy, I think the landscape has changed a lot. So I actually don't think that the power level would be a problem anymore. So I would love to see brewing with that. There are obviously some problems with finding like either A or B for Nadu with that card. But it's just a pet deck that I really enjoy brewing around. And when it comes to what I think they will do, I think Nadu might be in the crosshairs here. But I don't actually expect them to do anything for Legacy. So we'll see.
Yo, what up? It's Force of Phil. So obviously what I want is... What up, yo? It's Force of Phil. Obviously what I want unbanned is pretty much everything. Primarily since it's Divining Top, let's get some true gaming back for Legacy. I just want to see a huge shakeup. I want to see a whole bunch of unbans. I want to see stuff come off the ban list that was obsoleted in a previous age. The power of the format has escalated exponentially, and I think we should essentially rehash what the ban list actually looks like in the new Modern Horizons era. What I actually think is going to happen is I think they're going to hit Sowing Mycospawn, and I think they're going to take a stab at Entomb because Reanimator has been the top deck for a very long time. It has consistently been proving up results, and if they're not doing a huge overhaul, I think they're going to touch and go again by just hitting Mycospawn because it's not fun and nobody likes it, and I think they're going to hit Entomb as a way to actually hit the top deck and hopefully slow things down a little bit. That way the best tempo strategy isn't also the best combo strategy. So what I'm hoping for, huge overhaul. What I think is going to happen, sort of a continuation from what we've got, because until they show that they're willing to do it, I don't believe that they are.
Before you go, I need some help. Please subscribe to this channel and do your part to help sustain the Legacy content ecosystem. Just subscribe to this channel goes a long way to reminding YouTube that people love and support this format. Now, if you really want to go the extra mile, you should think about supporting us through Patreon. Both the links for subscription and Patreon are right here. And if you're listening on an audio format, you can go to patreon.com/eternaldurdles. Thanks so much for watching.